उनकी पढ़ाचार
सर आप थोड़ा
टेढ़ा
हाँ बस
ये दरवाजा बराबर बीच में है
नहीं वो बीच में नहीं आ रहा
ओके फाइन
ओके
Good afternoon, members.
Yeah.
Welcome to the first ever webinar of All India Federation. This is made possible because of the sincere efforts by our National President, Shri Ashok Bhai Saraf, and his team, especially Chirag Parekh and Hiral Shah. He is a new member, a techno-savvy chartered accountant. Friends, without wasting time, let us go ahead with the subject proper today. Our senior most past president, Mr. Praful C. Joshi, is going to deliver a talk on the impact of Constitution Amendment on value-added tax system. He would also devote time to the supply. He is going to touch some very nice aspect of supply which he wants to share his views to all of you. Friends, welcome you all. I'll hand over the charge to Mr. P.C. Joshi.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's my privilege and pleasure to be the first speaker at the webinar under the banner of our federation, under the leadership of my friend Ashok Saraf and his team. A few days back when Chirag told me that we proposed to start a webinar, I did not know what is webinar. First of all, I should know what webinar is, and that's why I took the help of Google on my computer and found out what is webinar. I couldn't know. Then I was told that it will be only a speech and not an interaction. I wanted that this type of webinar should be a regular feature, at least once in a month, as far as the federation is concerned, and it should be interactive with due advance information to all the members so that the subject will be dealt with not only by the speaker, but the participants also will have their own ideas, their thought, the share of thought, and that is the purpose of webinar according to me. As Palkiwala rightly said about the seminar, that it is a stock exchange for thoughts. Similar, this webinar also, according to me, should be a regular feature in the ages of federation with interaction between the speaker and the participants. The speaker also should know who are the participants, what are their places, where from they are speaking, so that they can properly respond to the query and then have a better rapport between the speaker and the member in general. With this small remark, I would say it's a suggestion to Mr. Saraf and Chirag and company. But let us have a better proposition, because technology is improving every day. Every moment there is an improvement. And what you thought of yesterday would be obsolete a few days thereafter. And therefore, the activities also should keep pace with the development technologically, and our all members should also be expert, not even expert, but should know or to take advantage of the development in the technology, by which they can update their knowledge, they can update about the information about the notifications, circulars, whatever is published by the government, we must transmit to the members at the earliest possible manner. Because today is the day when, unless and until you are updated with your knowledge, you will be nowhere. Unlike the earlier provisions of VAT, the GST have followed the manner of administrations on the basis of the central excise, by which day in and day out you have notifications, you have press notes, you have circulars, and unless and until you are updated with all these, I would say, subordinate legislations, you will be misguiding or properly not guiding the clients. You are an expert, and therefore clients who come to you expect that you will be really delivering it to him the updated knowledge. Friends, I wish all of you all the best. Take the advantage of this new venture. I would say not venture, new activity, which is additional feather in the cap of Dr. Ashok Sraf. Now, coming to the subject proper, I hope all of us, all of you are well aware about the Constitution 101st Amendment Act 2016. Now, this amending act was brought into force from 16 September 2016. I would not be taking up all the articles for today's address, but suffice it to say that Article 246 and 245 earlier delimited or bifurcated or segregated the legislative power between the parliament and the state legislature. Now, 246A, which was inserted, have an overriding proposition or overriding provision, because that Article 246A is not what you call in place of 246, but this is in addition to 246A, and it starts with notwithstanding anything contained in 246 and 254. Therefore, by this Article 246A, an additional legislative area or legislative power is created, deholds the what you call union list, deholds the state list, by which the intrastate or the local transactions of supply of service or the goods would be taxed not only by the state legislature's legislation, but also by the central, under the name of central goods and service tax, whereas each state have developed their own enactment, which is known as state GST. Now, as far as interstate is concerned, earlier the parliament had the power of making principles as to when can it be said that it is an interstate sale. Now, similar to that, here also the parliament will have an exclusive power as far as the interstate transactions are concerned, and that is under the provisions of integrated GST. Now, the rates are what you call integrated is, in nutshell, I will say CGST, SGST, and both combined will be the rate of IGST in general. I'm not specifically mentioning any item, because classification is a great job by itself. You have to know HSN code, and then you have to find out under which schedule or under which schedule it's falling, and then you have to determine. So that apart, that's a separate lecture which will take its own time. Now, what I wanted to emphasize for today's lecture is that the provisions as it is, Constitution amendment, you have seen it. I do not want to go into much detail, but I would straight away go to the amendments by clause 17, 18, and 19. These are the three for my today's address would be sufficient. Now, Section 17 of the Amendment Act have amended the union list, that is list 1, by which several entries are amended or rectified or substituted. Now, specifically entry 84, which earlier spoke of central excise, etc., customs, additional duties of customs, etc. In that place, now it is restricted only to the petroleum products. I would say in general, petroleum products and tobacco. Entry 92 and 92C. 92C spoke of living service tax. Now that also have been omitted. And entry 52 has also been omitted. Now coming to the more important is our state list. And state list entry 54 is amended or substituted, I would say. Now here also, earlier the entry referred to taxes on sale or purchase of goods. And that has been again expanded by Article 366(29)(a), whereby certain transactions A to F were added as deemed sale, which were not sale. So they are also covered by the provisions of the entry. Now that entry is substituted with the effect, again here also it is restricted to all those petroleum products and liquor for human consumption. Entry 62, which related to entry tax, that also has been omitted or substituted, because in that place they have got the advertisement tax, etc. Now the main important section is section 19. Now friends, one thing you should note is that section 17, 18 is okay, but section 19 is not forming part of the constitution. So if you refer to constitution per se, you will not find section 19 reproduced therein or it is as a part thereof. It's entirely outside the constitution, but part of the Constitution Amendment Act 2016. And therefore it is very, very important to find out for all of us as to what is the impact of this section 19. Now, for your purpose, it only says that the law which were in force at various states, parliament, etc., as on 16 September 16, would continue as it is uninterrupted from 1st July 17 also, though the our GST Act was brought into force from 1st July 2017, with a rider that those laws, if amended up to 30th June 17, is okay. But if it is not substituted, if it is not amended up to June 17, then it will continue for 1 year from the date on which the Constitution Amendment Act came into force. That is, Constitution Amendment Act came into force on 16 September 2016. Therefore, on 16 September 2017, all the laws, if they are not amended, comes to an automatic expired or null and void. Thereafter, no further activity or no further action can be taken under the local law. Now, here I would like to again clarify what is the position of Section 19. Section 19 is headed as transitional provisions. Now, if you remember, when the Constitution itself was brought into force on 26 January 1950, you had a similar provision also, that all laws which were in force on say 26 January 2015 will not be a valid law if those provisions are inconsistent with the provisions of the Constitution. That was the provision. Now here what they said, they have given time that even though the Constitution Amendment Act has come into force from 16 September 2016, we will give you 1 hour, we will give you 1 year, and by 1 year you keep your house or take your house in order if it all is required to be. Now, in June 2017, if you remember, as far as I'm talking about in Maharashtra and Gujarat, the state legislature passed the respective general, goods and service tax, which is known as Maharashtra Goods and Service Tax or Gujarat Service Tax, Gujarat Goods and Service Tax. Now here, friends, you will find Section 173 and 174 of those acts. Maharashtra and Gujarat I have referred to. Now here, unfortunately, they have not repealed or they have not saved the respective VAT Act provisions. Unlike Kerala, under 174, apart from the repeal, they have specifically saved the Kerala VAT Act provisions. And that aspect of the matter came up before the Kerala High Court very recently in the case of, it is reported that 207, the name is 207, it's the Kerala High Court. It's a very illuminating judgment. It is required to be read by all of you, and that precisely has given me too much inspiration for today's address, because it takes care of all the points which arise on the basis of change in law, and that is 62 GSTR 207 Kerala High Court in the case of Sheen Golden Jewels India Private Limited. It's a very learned judge, and I'm happy to note that this honorable learned judge, D.S. Naidu, is now transferred from Kerala to Bombay High Court. So we will have a benefit of his learning and experience in Bombay. Now, there he has stated that the Kerala legislature had the power to save the provisions of VAT Act. Now here in our Gujarat and Maharashtra is concerned, they have not, neither they have repealed VAT Act, nor have they saved the provisions of VAT Act. With this result, now on the face of the transitional provisions of the Constitution, which prevails over all the laws, whether it be by Parliament or by the individual state, will prevail, and that's why the provisions of General Clauses Act will not apply. This is one thing which you should maintain, always keep in mind that when you are reading impact of section 19 of the Amendment Act of the Constitution, the impact of General Clauses Act will not be there at all. Now, the question that arises is, what is the type of this section 19? Section 19, as I said, is in legal terminology, it is known as sunset clause. Sunset clause, it's a new clause which normally our law student may know when considering the construction chapter. Now, the sunset clause assumes that such statutory provisions provide that a particular law will expire automatically on expiry of a particular period. That is as mentioned about it. Now, as far as section 19 is concerned, it has specifically stated that the law in force on 16 September 16 will continue for 1 year unless and until it is amended in accordance with the provisions of the constitutional amendment. Now, accordingly, in June 2017, state GST was enacted. Unfortunately, section 173 provides for repeal, and as far as Maharashtra is concerned, section 173 of the state GST Act repealed VAT tax, purchase tax on sugarcane, advertisement tax, both entry tax, that is entry tax on vehicles, entry tax otherwise, and then tax on lottery, etc. These are all enactments which have been repealed by the section 173 of the Maharashtra Goods and Service Tax Act. Similar to the position as far as Gujarat is concerned. Now, 174 is a saving section. And saving section also do not save, as I stated earlier, the MVAT Act provisions or GVAT provisions. And therefore, the problem that arises is about the pending matters under VAT Act. How do we do? How do we face it? Now, there are twofold propositions in this regard. When there is a new law or there is a change in the law, the actions already initiated prior to change in the law would be governed by that law irrespective of the amendment. And that is what Hussain Qasim Dada way back in 4 STC 114 held it. And that law is still even today a valid law. That the actions initiated or pending or in progress on say 16 September 16 or 16 September 17, I would say, I'll go further, will continue without any effect as far as the amendment is concerned. But in my view, the rights are continued if that right has been initiated. Now, no new action can be initiated after 16th of September 2017 under the VAT Act. Take, for example, a person is found to be, though liable, not yet registered under the VAT Act. Now, in that case, the question that would arise is whether any action can be taken on such type of cases. In my view, following the judgment of the Supreme Court, the proceedings of assessment can be said to have been initiated or commenced with the submission of the return. That is as far as registered dealers are concerned. But as far as unregistered dealers are concerned, the date on which a notice is issued by the authority would be the date when the proceedings can be said to have been commenced. And therefore, taking analogy of that law, in my view, once an unregistered dealer is thought to be pursued after 16 July 17, he cannot be done, he cannot be proceeded further on the basis of the provisions of section 19, because the initiation cannot be done on the basis of a deadlock. On 16 September 2017, MB80 Act or Gujarat VAT Act has gone. It is buried, and therefore no action can ever be initiated on the basis of such a deadlock. And according to me, those people who, though liable, were not registered are outside the purview of the Act as far as the action on and onwards from 17th September 2017 is concerned. That takes me to the other aspect of the matter which I would like to pursue is what is the impact of the Constitution Amendment on the provisions of VAT Act, that is GST Act or SGST Act or IGST Act. Now here, friends, I would again bring to your notice that the provisions of Constitution prevails over all the laws, whether it is made by Parliament or whether it is made by the state. And therefore, the enactment so made has to be within the parameter of the Constitution Amendment. Now, when that is so, if you see all the articles which are substituted or which are inserted, everywhere they are speaking to the supply of goods or services. Supply, mind well, supply of goods or supply of services. Nowhere does it refer to the activities which, according to the definition of the term service, is sought to be included under the GST Act. That, according to me, is not the correct manner, because in that way, activities can be of different types. Activities by a charitable trust, activities of a sport association, activities by institutions like federation, activities can be many, and therefore you cannot consider activities to be part of a supply of service as is sought to be done in the definition thereof. Now, if you see the impact as to what is the meaning of supply, the supply per se means something which you have within your possession, which you want to supply to somebody else. That is called supply. Now, if you don't have anything, no law can assume that, no, if you don't have, still we will say that you have supplied something to somebody. Because something which you do not have, you do not possess, you cannot transfer it. And that is how, when I come to the case law, some of the case law which I wanted to refer, you will know that this also is not the correct position. Now, what is the silent features of GST which we should always bear in mind? And that is, first, it applies only to supply of goods or services as against earlier concept of production, manufacture, resale, import, export, everything. Now, again, the earlier provisions were on the basis of commencement of the supplier's position. Now here it is destination based. Destination based is not the origin based. That is the law as far as GST is concerned. Now considering again, what is the impact of supply? What is how do you consider? See, law is okay, but what is law? Law is something which appeals to your common sense. And if it is contrary to or if it does not appeal to your common sense, it is required, it can be challenged. Don't go by what X says or Y says. I've been always saying repeatedly that read the law and apply your mind to the provisions of law. Now, so there according to me, there are three essential ingredients for considering a transaction to be taxable. First is there should be existence of goods or services which is required to be supplied by A to B, by myself to Mr. Chirag. Then there should be in reality a supply from A to B, but that should be for consideration, not what you call gratis. So therefore, the supply should be for a consideration. Friends, here you will notice that VAT Act provided for the expression valuable consideration. Now here it speaks of consideration only, but when you consider the consideration definition, you will find that the use of money itself is consideration. And therefore, from that we can take a hint that consideration means what can be valued in money and money's worth. That is called consideration. Then all these supplies should be, and that is very important, in the course of one's business or furtherance of business. In other words, even if there is a supply, even if there is a consideration, if that is not in the course of business, it cannot be said to be supply as far as GST is concerned. Now, that is what I feel, that all these three ingredients must necessarily remain present or found to be present before a transaction can be considered to be a supply as far as the levy is concerned. Now, taking straight to the activities which I earlier referred to, and that is the definition of the term services. As I stated, all articles I have referred to again and again. I have to find out whether activities can be fitted in the amended constitution. No, I could not find anything. And therefore, there is no article which enables the parliament to expand the definition of the term services to include activities. And therefore, to that extent, one will have to wait for the law settled by the constitutional courts. Now, again, this aspect of the matter gets support from the retrospective amendment made by Act 31 of 2018, where Schedule 2 have been amended. The heading is amended. So earlier it was only activities. Now they have added activities or transactions. Mind, this is an indication where the other people also, the draftmen also found possibly that in Schedule 2 only activities can't survive. And as I stated earlier, activities are again outside the purview of the Constitution Amendment, and therefore it can be challenged. But Schedule 2 amendment with the heading itself has given me a support that yes, transaction can be, but not the activities as general. Then the other is the course of business and consideration. As I have explained, both are required to be present along with the main object. Now, if you see section 7, which is a section by which the supply, the scope thereof has been explained to be in detail. If you see Schedule 1, 2, and 3 appended to the Act, that is appended to section 7 only. Mind well, it is not appended to section 9, but Schedule 2, Schedule 1, Schedule 3, all are appended to section 7 because section 7 denotes or specifies the scope of supply. And therefore, it is very important for all us to read Schedules 1, 2, and 3 along with the provision of section 7. Now, here, for my purpose, most important is the Schedule 1, which specifies certain activities, even if without consideration, shall be deemed to be that of a service, that of supply. Now here, serial number 2 of the said schedule is very important for all of us because it refers to supplies between related persons and non-resident and non-resident taxable and casual taxable persons. And that is why entry 2 I have selected for our discussion. Now here, friends, one should always bear in mind they are related persons. Who is related person? The related person has not been defined under the Act, but Section 15(5), there is an explanation added which relate to the computation or valuation of taxable supply between the two persons who are said to be a related person. So that Section 15(5) is also important for all of us. But here, one should always bear in mind that the transaction sought to be supplied or sought to be taxed should be in the course of business. Now here, I would say, take for example of an employer-employee. There was a case where, I'll come to that later on, but this service, as far as the employer and employee is concerned, is not treated as a supply by virtue of entry 1 of Schedule 3. And according to me, that will be overriding Schedule 2 entry 2 of Schedule 1. Because ultimately, if the specific provision provide that the transactions or the service rendered by an employee to the employer will not be deemed to be that of a supply, then in that case, by analogy, you cannot include the levy of transactions which the Maharashtra Advanced Ruling Authority has done in one of the cases. And that is, I'll refer to it later on, but first I will refer to cross charge, and that is very, very important for this discussion, and that is by Karnataka Appellate Authority of Advanced Ruling in the case of Columbia Asia Hospitals Private Limited. It is decided on 12 December 2018. Now here is a case where the corporate office in, say, one place in Karnataka, number of employees were appointed at Karnataka. They had their own units in other states, say Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Gujarat, etc. Now, obviously for finding out the status of individual units of their activities, the corporate office head, I would say head office, would definitely like to know in which way or in which manner the transaction can be complied with so that you can get a better result. And for that purpose, the employees in Karnataka were also directly or simultaneously maintaining records of the transactions completed at other units. Now, all these activities by the employee were to be done during the office hours. In other words, they were not to take the work of other units only after office hours. Then we can say that it is an additional service which they are rendering to. But as far as it's a one of the condition or a service condition that you will have to maintain the records of all the units at Karnataka. No separate service, no separate what you call salary is paid, and therefore the question that arose is, you are passing entries notionally, pro rata, according to the volume of the activities by each unit on the salary. Salary, suppose it is paid 10,000 rupees at Karnataka, that will be segregated to amongst all the units according to the volumes. And that is how, on that basis, the authorities did that you yourself have bifurcated. And therefore, to that extent, one can say that there is a service rendered by Karnataka to other units because their provision, their submission is they look to 25. Section 25(5) says that each unit will have a separate registration, and separate registration, according to them, is a separate entity for the purpose of levy of transaction. Yes, that is so, but that transaction should be in the course of business. Now, if the business of this Karnataka company is only say products X product or Y product, I can understand when you are transferring from Karnataka to other units, there is a deemed transaction of supply. Yes, but in the present position where the employee himself is rendering his services to the Karnataka, sitting at Karnataka, simply because accounting is done, you cannot say that there is a supply and there is a cross charge. In other words, the unit has supplied something for which you are being paid, the employee is being paid. That, according to me, is absolutely particular, far stretching the provisions of law, and the whole purpose seems to be to increase the revenue, which, according to me, should not have been the view as was found in earlier. In this case, again I would refer to entry 1 of Schedule 3 because there is a specific entry, as I stated earlier. There is a specific entry providing for the transaction as not to be treated as a supply between the employer and employee. If that is so, how can by analogy say that the employee in Karnataka has rendered service to a unit in say Gujarat or Maharashtra and then levy tax? I mean, this is very absurd way of thinking, according to me. Then, friends, the other transaction which I'm asked to refer to is, that is what Mukul Gupta has raised, is liquidated damages. Now, what is liquidated damages? Liquidated damages is something which the party agreed to pay to the other party on his failure to carry out the his obligation during a particular time. Suppose, take for example, I undertake to construct a bridge, and specifically time-bound program was there, and because it has to be inaugurated by Prime Minister on a particular day, and if that time is not scheduled, accepted, or per chance, for my own fault, if the bridge is not completely constructed for inauguration by the Prime Minister, then naturally the law provides that there is a liquidated damage payable by the contractor to the government because the work is not complete within the time. Now, in this case, the question that arises is, I don't want, why do you want this? Why disturb? The other people will feel that now, as I stated, and that judgment is by the Maharashtra Advanced Ruling Authority and is reported in 61 GSTR 189 in the case of Zaver Shankarlal Bhanushali. Now, this is a case again where I would not read to in detail, but suffice it to say that there was an agreement between the landlord and the developer to develop a particular area. And since the land also had an old structure already constructed in which tenants were staying, so there was another agreement between the tenants and the developer and the owner that we will give you the reconstructed, redeveloped premises by say end of third year. Until then, we will pay you, we'll compensate you either alternate accommodation or on payment of whatever that may be fixed. The question that arose is, and all of you all are aware that the real estate industry, for one or the other reasons, were not controlled at all. And therefore, always the customers who wanted to buy the accommodation or even a new construction were at mercy of the developer. There are several cases which are found to have been complained of where the possessions are not given. Even when the full consideration is collected by the developer, and what the victim can do, what victim have any resort, he will have to what you call condone the delay, or he will have to bear the delay, or the question is whether you have any other way. You have already paid the money in full. What else can you do? You will have to wait for the completion of the building and then take possession whenever he feels, whenever the developer feels like giving you. But then the question that arises here is, when there is a delay in giving back the reconstructed premises, whether there is any transaction which is liable to tax as a supply. According to me, no, but then the AR has stated that you are bearing with the lapse on behalf of the developer, and therefore it's a transaction of supply of service, because construction of immobile property is evidently under the provisions of schedule itself is service. But these type of things, according to me, cannot be said to be service as contemplated under the Constitution Amendment. Because ultimately, as I stated, there should be three ingredients present for levying tax. Now that cannot be what you call sacrifice and saying that simply because I am continuing or I am pardoning the developer for the delay and he is giving me compensation, the tenant is receiving the compensation. Basically, first you should find out whether tenant have anything to supply for which the developer is giving the money. No, he doesn't have anything except waiting. He cannot do anything except that, and therefore there is nothing to supply, and therefore according to me, these type of transactions are not at all liable under the GST Act. And again I have said that AR is again is a avenue for creating the litigation. It's the first step for litigation. And earlier, what we found in determination provisions are again same position as AR, though the name is authority of advance ruling. But advance ruling is only giving you advance passport for you to go higher and higher. This, according to me, is absurd, and therefore I would caution everybody that as far as possible, don't go to AR at all. Let the assessing authority determine so that you have all the steps to go further. But here is a case where your liability will be unnecessarily invited, and therefore avoid going to AR at all. Thank you very much, friends, and I'm sure I've completed the my address within the stipulated time of 45 minutes. Thank you very much.
Friends, at the outset, let me just inform you that this was our first webinar and it was decided to conduct a webinar just a day before yesterday. So the first name came in my mind of our senior past president, Shri P.C. Joshi Kaka. I fondly call him as a Kaka. In Gujarati, uncle. So, friends, in the moment I called him, immediately he has given his consent. So, in this what we call technology area, generally we would have said that webinar would have been inaugurated by his gracious hand. So, instead of his gracious hand, the same was inaugurated by him by his gracious speech. Sir, we are very much thankful and highly obliged to you for sparing your valuable time for the cause of the Federation.
Thank you, dear. Thank you very much.
Secondly, friend, first webinar was our Federation. I would like to mention that this would not have been possible without help and support of our association, which is GSTPAM, Goods and Service Tax Practitioner Association of Maharashtra, and his president, Shri Pradeep Kapadia, along with his team, along with his office staff, and one of the committee member, Nikita Ben has said, a techno-savvy chartered accountant, Hiransa, who was present besides me at the starting of the webinar. So he deserves a special thank. Thank you very much, Hiran. Friends, let me once again tell you that whenever we are discussing any activity about doing for the cause of the Federation, we discuss with our national president, Dr. Ashok Saraf. Immediately he gives his consent and he gives free hand to work, and accordingly he said, for the cause of the association or the cause of the Federation, whatever help, whatever support you needed, you are always welcome. And with this we could have successfully completed this webinar. Friends, let me also tell you that for each and every activity of the Federation, motivation and guidance from our Deputy President Nikita Ben is always there. Further, friends, last year only this was conceptualized by one of our friend Mr. Pankaj Gia, and today I can proudly say that his dream is materialized. Friend, as today we have recorded the lecture, we will create a YouTube channel for this, and tomorrow the same will be uploaded on the AIFTP YouTube channel. Thank you very much.
And
Thank you.
whether it will be on a regular feature.
Yes. Sorry. As Kaka has always said, I have already written, but sorry, I forgot that he said propose 2 webinar per month. I assure that we have got authority like Kaka. So one we will do it on direct text, one we will do it on indirect text.
That's it.
And again, as he said, that query interaction.
Yeah.
So we will give a due publicity, and we will invite query in advance, and we will increase the time of the webinar also. Thank you very much.
Thank you, dear. Good day. Bas, huh? You know, right?
Yes.